Ah, a brand new home, full of potential. Potential arguments, that is. We're about to try to decorate our new home without losing our cool, in DECORUM from Floodgate Games. Hi, I'm Andy at Board Game Barrister. Our play-along tutorials are designed for you to be able to play along with your own copy of the game, or just learn to play as you watch. If you do have your own copy, feel free to grab your game box now and follow along. Let's get started by opening the box and retrieving your game components. You should have one 2-part house board, a token board, 48 object tokens in 4 colors, 16 wall color tokens, 5 heart tokens, and a round marker. The black and white scenario envelopes can stay in the box for now, along with the sealed unlockable packets and the 4 roommate tokens. There will be times throughout this tutorial where I suggest that you pause the video while you get caught up in your own game. Let's take our first pause while you get your box open and your pieces all punched out and accounted for. Let's get set up for your game. Starting now, we're going to look at how the game works for 2 players, and then I'll cover what changes for 3 and 4 players once we've covered the basics. The first thing you should do is divide all your object and wall color tokens onto their matching spaces on the token board. There should be 4 tokens in every stack when you're done. Notice that each object type comes in all 4 colors and all 4 styles, but not all combinations are available. There are no modern yellow objects, or red antiques for instance. And while you can have a green curio or an antique curio, there is no such thing as a green antique curio. Getting the tokens distributed on the board can take a little time, so feel free to pause again here while you get those tokens organized. Next, find the side of the upper house board that shows the 2-player icon in the corner, then connect that side face up with the lower house board. Place 3 heart tokens beside the board, and the round marker on the 1 space. At this point in the setup, you'll pick a scenario to play. Let's start with Scenario 1 of the 2-player campaign, titled Welcome Home. Grab the Welcome Home envelope from the box. It contains hidden information, so carefully open it. Look for either the back of a card like this, or the front of the setup card. Place that setup card face up on the table, and place the other 2 cards face down for now. The setup card shows you the state of the house at the start of the scenario, so you should add all of the tokens shown to your house board now. In this case, the bathroom contains an antique curio and modern wall hanging, and is painted blue. The bedroom contains an unusual lamp and is painted green, the living room has a retro lamp and is painted yellow, and the kitchen has an unusual wall hanging and is painted red. Let's pause again while you finish setting up for the scenario. Unpause when you're ready to get started. Okay, let's get decorating. You can now hand one of the face-down scenario cards to each player at random. Look at the card you were given. On it, you'll see 3 conditions that your character needs in order to be satisfied with the house. Starting out, some or all of your conditions will be untrue about the decor, so that's what we'll be working on. This game can only be won when all of the conditions on all players' cards are true all at the same time. So not only do your conditions need to be fulfilled, all of your housemates' conditions do as well. On each of your turns, you'll get to make individual changes to the house's decor to try and fulfill your conditions, and as you learn more about them, also help to fulfill your housemates' goals. If you can make it so that all of the players are satisfied with the house, meaning all of their conditions are true all at once before the end of the 30th round of play, then you win! Let's start with the 4 actions you're allowed to take on your turn. First, you can add 1 object to an empty space that matches the object's type. For example, you could add this unusual curio to this curio space in the bedroom. You're allowed to add an object of any style, although your conditions might direct which style you choose. Your second available action is to remove any one object from the board. There are no restrictions on what can be removed. The third action is to swap one object for another object of the same type. The object you replace it with can, and probably should, be a different style and color, so you could remove the unusual curio and replace it with an antique curio, for instance, and you must place the replacement object in the same space as the one you removed, so it must be the same type, like a lamp for a lamp or a curio for a curio. Fourth, you can paint a room by removing the current wall color token and replacing it with a different one. That wall color token is the only factor in determining what color each room is painted for the sake of your conditions. Those sound like a lot to keep track of, but once you start making changes to the house, these 4 actions will come naturally. So let's start with our first action of the game. Player 1 is the player whose condition card shows a filled-in player icon on the left, so Spencer in the case of scenario number 1. Spencer should now take their first turn by performing a single action from the list. If you're not sure what to choose, take a moment to look over your condition card, choose one condition that isn't true yet, and make a move that will move the house 1 step closer to that condition being fulfilled. Let's pause here while Spencer takes the first action of the game, and then we'll talk about Blake's comment on that action. Okay, the first move has been made. Hopefully this helps move Spencer 1 step closer to being satisfied. As for Blake, well, we're about to find out. After every single action you take, your housemate will make a comment about that action. That comment can be positive, negative, or neutral. Player 2, Blake, if the action your housemate took helped fulfill one of your conditions, you should make a positive comment, like, "Oh, wow, I love it," or "I really think we're on the same page here." But if the action actively damaged the progress toward your conditions, you should make a negative comment, like, "Ugh, really? You think that looks good?" Or, "Nope, I hate that." And if the action didn't really affect your conditions, or if it helped one while hurting another, you could make a neutral comment, like, "That's fine, I guess," or, "Sure, you do you." And part of the fun of Decorum is in the flavorful ways you get to express your admiration and disgust for the other player's moves, so feel free to get creative with it. The one thing you can't do in your comments is to provide any information about why you love or hate something, because it could reveal information about your secret conditions. At an extreme, you absolutely shouldn't say something like, "Nope, I hate the yellow paint in the bedroom because I need the entire upstairs to be painted red." But even subtle hints like, "I just really don't think we should have a wall hanging in the bedroom," should be edited to, "I just really don't think that works there." Your group can certainly blur the line on this rule if you feel like the communication rules are too restricting, but try starting out with no hints and adjust as needed from there. Okay, so it's time for Blake to make a comment, whether positive, negative, or neutral. After that, it's Blake's turn to take an action. So now Blake should make a comment and then make their move, and then Spencer should comment on that move. Let's pause here and unpause once both players have taken an action and then commented on their housemate's action for round 1. Alright, you're just about done with round 1 of play, and you know most of the rules of the game. Now that you've reached the end of the round, you should move your round marker to the 2 space and start round 2. Spencer will begin every round, and you'll play the same order of actions and comment as you did in round 1. There is one more step in each round that I'll add now, and that is to let your housemate know when all of your conditions are satisfied. At the end of each of your actions, and before your housemate comments on them, you should check whether all of your conditions are satisfied. Obviously, that won't be the case just yet, but it's good to get in the habit of checking. So right after you take your action, if your conditions are all 100% satisfied, you can announce, "I'm fulfilled." This lets your housemate know that the current setup works for you, even if it needs some rearranging before it works for them. If it's ever your turn to take an action and you see that you are fulfilled, you are allowed to pass your action. This can only be done when you're 100% fulfilled, although you're also allowed to continue taking actions as normal if you think you can help your housemates toward their conditions as well. For the time being, you can continue on through the next few rounds. I'll display the turn order as well as the available actions while you do. Pause here until the end of round 15, or if you reach a moment when both players are satisfied before then. Okay, congratulations are in order because you have either won your first scenario, or it's time for your very first heart-to-heart. If you and your housemate are both satisfied with the house in its current configuration, that means you've won, and you can move on to scenario 2. But before you do, let's talk about the last part of the gameplay, the heart-to-heart. Sometimes you realize that shouting, "Bah, I hate that," and "What were you thinking?" just doesn't cut it, so at certain milestones in your game, you'll have a chance to sit down and actually communicate with your housemate. This is called a heart-to-heart. At the end of rounds 15, 20, and 25, both players should choose one condition from their card and read it out loud to the other player. This is super valuable information about what the other player needs, and it's up to you to remember what your housemate says, so pay attention. Each heart-to-heart will hopefully get you one step closer to understanding each other's needs. If you're at the end of round 15 now, you should flip over one of your 3 heart tokens to signify you've used one of your 3 heart-to-hearts, then read one condition each. Do so again at the end of rounds 20 and 25. You may notice here that your house board only has 15 round spaces on it. Now that you've finished round 15, you should move your round marker back to the 1 space with the small 16 printed underneath it to represent that you've reached the second half of the game. Now the game can end in 2 ways. The first one is that if one player announces they're fulfilled and then the other player passes their turn and announces that they're also fulfilled, this means you win and you can move on to the next scenario. And the second is if you reach the end of round 30 and at least one player is not yet fulfilled. This means you didn't quite make the new house work this time and you'll have to reset your house and try this scenario again. There are some rules for additional scoring on page 13 of the rulebook if you're interested, and the 2-player campaign will continue from here with scenario number 2. Make sure to watch for scenarios 12 and 15 when you'll get to open the secret campaign packets. You now know all you need to know to play Decorum with 2 players. Next up, we're going to talk about what changes in a 3 or 4 player game. Let's take a look at what changes when you play Decorum with 3 or 4 players. The core gameplay, like how your condition card works or what actions you can take on your turn, is all very similar to the 2-player mode, but with a few tweaks here and there. First, during setup, you'll want to flip the upper house board to the side showing a 4-player icon. There you'll see some slightly different iconography for when to have your heart-to-hearts, or house meetings as they're called in a 3 or 4 player game. Grab all 5 heart tokens out of the box to represent the 5 house meetings you'll have during your game. You'll see that the black envelopes for the 3 and 4 player scenarios don't have numbers because they're not made to be played in sequential order like the 2-player campaign is. So instead, if you're just starting off, you should choose one of the easiest 1-star scenarios like Three's a Crowd. Open that scenario envelope and set up the house with the setup card just like in the 2-player scenarios, but you'll also notice that there are small cards in the envelope in addition to the large condition cards. Each player should take 1 large card and all of the small cards of the same player number, which is also represented by the color on the back. You'll notice that each of your small cards lists one of the conditions from your large card. And if you only have 3 players, you can set the player 4 scenario card aside, but each player should take one of the small player 4 cards as instructed on the back of each of those cards. Consider this additional small card to be a 4th condition on your large card for this scenario. 2 more things and then you're all set. You're going to take turns performing actions in player order, just like in the 2-player game, and each time a player takes an action, any other players who wish to can comment. That means not everyone must comment, but everyone can if they want to. And last, the house meeting, which replaces the 2-player heart-to-heart. With 3 or 4 players, you get to have a house meeting every 5 rounds. No need to wait until round 15 to start either, so you get a house meeting at the ends of round 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. At each house meeting, each housemate gets to hand one of their small condition cards to one other player of their choice. You don't have to hand a card back to a player who gives you one, so this means one player could receive multiple small cards while others receive 0. You get to hold on to any cards you receive, and you can reference them for as long as they remain in front of you. But if the player who gave it to you wants to show it to someone else at a future house meeting, they'll need to take it from in front of you first and pass it to the other player. So in that case, you'll want to read it one more time and remember what it says. And if you are playing with 3 players, you can share the extra 4-player small card you received, and because it's considered a part of your large condition card, you can actually continue to reference and read it while it's in front of the player who you gave it to. Beyond all that, the success and fail conditions are all the same. If you can get everyone simultaneously satisfied before the end of round 30, you win. But if round 30 comes and goes, it's all over for ya. That does it for our play-along tutorial of DECORUM. Subscribe to see more videos every week, and we love chatting with our viewers, so leave a comment if you've got a comment. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.